Welcome to the Semgrep webinar. I am Tanya Janka. I am your host. I am here with my friend Yabing Wang, but I'm going to let her introduce herself. Yabing, could you tell us, introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Yabing, and I know it's hard to remember names like this, but I will tell you a trick. 2009, Yahoo bought Microsoft Bing engine, the search engine, and they were trying to figure out a new brand, a new name, and Yabing actually was one of the options. Well, of course, they didn't go with that option. If they did, you probably is in a better place right now. But that's how you can remember my name. It's Yahoo plus Bing engine. And currently, I'm a CISO and CIO at JustWorks. JustWorks is a New York-based company, but we do payroll, benefits, insurance, and all only focus on small business. We do business across the globe, and I've been here over 3 years. Prior to that, I've been in cyber for since 2002. 23 years. And then actually prior to that, I was doing development, working for Netscape Communications, that the first internet company. I was not in product development as a developer. I was with their professional services. And in late 90s, it was the first wave of e-commerce. It's a dot-com world. And Netscape had the first generation of e-commerce infrastructure, from a web server to app server to portal server, communication services like that. So as our experts in our product, we went to our customer side. We do deployment. We help them develop a Java J2EE applications. And I think I've done that for 5 years traveling, and then finally decided, oh, have a kid. I cannot do travel anymore. And that's where I switched to Austin Insurance Company, and that's where I started my cyber journey. And you know what? Never regret it.
Nice. So we met through a group called Forte Group,
Yes.
and I was wondering if you wanted to tell people about Forte. I never know what to tell people when I explain what Forte is. Like, do you want to try or should I try?
You try, and I can add. Yeah, go ahead. You try.
Okay, so Forte Group started when my friend Chensi Wang messaged me and a couple other women in 2020 to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of COVID. I'm so sick of isolating. I'm so sick of not seeing my friends. Let's have a virtual coffee, like happy hour hangout session. And we had so much fun, we decided we would do it every 2 weeks. And then after a couple of months, it's like, well, what if we learned stuff too? So we started giving presentations and teaching each other, and it kept growing. And then over time, we created a nonprofit and we became over 100 women of the most powerful women in all of cyber. So lots of CISOs, lots of cyber CEOs, cyber startup founders, and we have a five-star general. We have just like people that are just way, way high up that are women in cyber. And we help each other and teach each other. And we're trying to get lots of us onto public boards. And I just joined our board as head of community. Yay! And I'm super
Congratulations.
excited. But
Yeah,
how would you describe it? Or like how, like, am I
no,
right? Or
I will say the same thing, but maybe call out two more things. One is we started with a group of people in the United States, but right now we have women leaders all over the world, right? So that's kind of really evolving. And secondly, I want to highlight is I feel like it's a very tight community. Like you said, we teach each other stuff, we learn from each other, we support each other. It's really one of my supporting structure. It was just like such a wonderful community.
yeah. Well, and a lot of us do really super cool projects together.
That's
And
right.
one of the super cool projects was a book. And
Yay!
the, and my next question was about 97 things every application security professional should know by my two friends, Yabing and Reet. Can you Could you tell us about your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole thing started, let me go back. We published this book last year around June, and we worked on the book together in 2023, the whole year. Maybe the whole thing started at the end of 2022, where O'Reilly, as a publisher, they have a series of books related to technology called 97 Things some professionals should know. And the first book they had on security is called 97 Things Every Information Security Professional Should Know. And they were planning to say what will be the next security book they should publish. I don't know where did they get the idea, maybe from you, Tanya, I don't remember, but it's like, hey, they would like to work on the application security. And I just remember, I believe this opportunity came to Forte Group, if I remember right. And both Ray and I raised our hands. And that's how the whole thing started. In 2023, we start to work with the project managers on O'Reilly side, trying to lay out what we want to put in the content and looking for contributors, authors, people really deep in AppSec around the world and start seeking their thoughts, their ideas, and what they can contribute. Um, and we worked on this probably about a year, and finally we get it published last year, where it started with a digital platform. So already, as long as you are part of their membership, you get access to this digital copy right away. And also Amazon published the Kindle copy. And another, I think, partner of O'Reilly, a publisher in India, also actually published the physical book last year as well. So you can get all kinds of copies. And thank
Nice.
you, Tanya, for contributing to the book as one of the authors.
I am one of 96 others, I believe.
Yeah, I think we have a 70-ish authors. There are 97, if you call that chapters, short articles or essays touch on different things. And then there are a few others actually contributing like two essays like that.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's fantastic. I was thinking, like, how would you even find 97 AppSec professionals who are like open to writing something? I'm like, that's so I have,
Actually, do you want me
sorry.
to touch on that piece? Because maybe two things on this. One is that, well, this is my first time publishing books. I was very excited too, but I was concerned that do I have enough time, right, to do this? Not only like a writing, because I wrote one chapter as well, but more of, getting all the people joining this and editing, reviewing like that. So I was originally very happy to see Reid and I both being the co-editor. So I thought, oh, maybe I only need to spend half of the time. But it turned out, no, actually, we actually reviewed all of the articles, all of the things, and basically the decision of yes, this is good for the book is based on both of our perspectives. So I thought later on, I realized how important to have two people to do this,
Yeah.
where number one, we have our different experience, therefore we shape our perspective a little bit different. Two, we have different network, right? So that gets back to the question of like, how did we find those people? We really, number one, look from our network. Number two, we also like OWASP is a great example of we go to the group, right? We promote those kind of things over there. We also, through those AppSec related conferences, looking
Mhm.
for the attendees, speakers, and then go from there. That's how we get those contributors together.
Nice. So first of all, I want to ask the audience or tell the audience if they want to ask Yebing a question, they can put it in the chat. You are allowed to ask her questions too. Not only Tanya is allowed to ask questions. Um, so I have so many questions about writing a book. So I have written books too, and it's hard, Yebing. It's
Yeah.
hard. work. And
Particularly like you writing the whole book, right? Really it's hard, takes a lot of time.
but you had to manage 70 people. Plus you and Reed had to manage yourselves, right? And so like that
Yeah.
is a lot of cats to herd, right? Um, so how so how did you find all your different contributors for the book and like how do you choose, right? Like how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, through our network, through those conferences, we get original names. We reach out to them. Not everyone has an interest or time, to write. I still remember a few others. I really want to get them on, but they were just too busy, to do that. But after we identify people who showed interest, we discuss with them says, you can pick anything in AppSec world to write, anything you are passionate about, anything you think other people can benefit, right? Anything you have a lesson to learn or anything like that. So they kind of give us here, I'm interested in, those kind of topics. And we will choose to say, you know what, we already have, a few people focus on this one. How about this topic you are interested? That we don't have people to write. So we discuss on, what they will write. Some of them said, I'll go with this one. And some of them say, why don't I have time. Why don't I write two? You guys choose which one. So let's go. That's the initial part. And then after that is really about reviewing their essays from like quality of the writing, value of that particular essay, and relevance, to AppSec. I mean, security is too big. If you want anything not exactly relevant to AppSec, that's not this is about, right? So we also want to find the relevance from that perspective. And that's how we generally, assess of, the the essays. And that's why sometimes when people have multiple, and we thought most of them have like value to add and then, relevance to them, we went away with a few of them with multiple as well. But generally we don't go with like more than three, right? It's not a book. This is for one thing. I call this a collective wisdom from everyone. I think I would call that's kind of like the value of this kind of collection of the essays is for one book, you can clearly express your point, but
Mhm.
it's one perspective, even though you may collect many things. But when you have multiple people and everybody experience is different, in particular, this is not a purely education book. This really focuses on a lot of practice, right? How you apply AppSec in the real world. So people's experiences, their wisdoms, their perspective matters.
When you asked me to write a chapter, I think you said, "Will you write a chapter?" And you did not say, "Would you write an essay?" And honestly, essay makes me think of high school and me just getting C's all the time because they're
Right.
always like, "Get to the point, Tanya, get to the point." And, and so I'm
Yeah,
glad you
that's
didn't
good.
use the word essay because I probably would have been like, "Oh no, I can't.
Yeah,
I can
true,
write a
true.
chapter. That's easy. An essay is so hard."
Good point. Good point.
That's funny. No, but it's
It's a
true. They
fun
are
journey.
essays. You're right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Were there any themes? So there's 97 different chapters. Were there
Yes.
any themes or maybe patterns that you could see?
Um, First one, we kind of design the content in a way that it's not a random. You have 97 things. So we design this in like 12 different sections. Let's call the individual as a chapter, and then we have 12 sections. And those sections, I would say, focus on three different things. One is about, running program, right? So considering you want to run a programming company and what will be the lessons, tricks, suggestions on how to run the program, what's in the scope, things like that. That's one. The second one, um, touch on like typical things in AppSec from secure SDLC. to scanning, testing, to vulnerability management, to um, like software supply chain, right? It's part of like, yeah, and the threat modeling. This is basically in this whole secure SDLC. What are the big components you could do? And then the third one is, specific things because a lot of them, even though it's general, but a lot of them focus on web application development. And
Mhm.
I think we have other sections like API security, mobile app, IoT related, and AI. I mean, imagine this is 2 years ago. So AI just started, and then we whipped in the AI part as well. Um, I think the last section is related to there are certain area that kind of like connected to AppSec. Um, we particularly called out a data protection, and also if I remember right, it's a threat intelligence and incident response related to AppSec. So we have those different sections, and that's how we kind of bundle the chapters together from that perspective. And well, the book came out after, I mean, other than the 12 sections, each section there's a the order of that is only alphabetically following the name. So there's no uh, grouping within a section. So that's kind of a one thing. So if the readers, you know, open the book, I will suggest they look at, different sections, see where their interest lies at that moment. Maybe that's a, first section they can go to look into.
So, would there be one specific chapter where you're like, everyone needs to read this one? This is the one I need you all to read. Is there a chapter like that?
Uh, I I would not simply answer there's one thing because it really depends on where you are and what you're looking for when you have that book. So, like I said, there's one section about 15
Mhm.
chapters related to running a program. So, if you are playing a leadership role and really think from overall security perspective, you would like to run a program. And that I will encourage you to look for that section. Um, but if you are a developer
Mhm.
and trying to say, I've been just purely software developer and I want to know about security. And
Mhm.
if that's the case, I would say the section of secure SDLC
Mhm.
will be the probably first section you look for because it explains what are the major components around this. And then also that depends on what you do, right? For example, if you are a mobile developer, maybe you want to go to the mobile section right away, right? If you are really heavily on the IoT related and go to that section right away. So I think it depends on each individual, their skill sets, and at the moment, what they want to do when they get the book.
Cool.
Do you
I
have
I think
one?
that's great advice. I really do.
Oh,
Um, so going more to like AppSec rather than the book, do you see, because you've been doing this a long time
yes.
and things change over time, and I'm wondering if you are seeing the relationship between the security team and, engineering or product, basically the software developers, or do you see that relationship changing and evolving?
Um, I do. I particularly think the need of that relationship is changing. I remember, so like I mentioned, I started as application developer. Walking into security, AppSec becomes like my forte. Um, and around 2010, wow, 15 years ago. Around 2010-ish is where I was at Austin Insurance Company, and we wanted to build an AppSec program. So I was leading the AppSec program. And um, at that time, I can tell that the security is a different organization, right? Your developers at that time it was not DevSec yet, 2010, and then your developers, your product, development, the totally different organization. It is more of, hey, we want to do this security team. We want to do this because we see the benefits, blah blah blah. So a lot of things we design that time is like, hey, we want a gate in your SDO process. We want to review this. We want to sign off that. So it's really at that time, a lot of them, it's like you versus me, right? Us versus them. Um, of course, that along the way that, I took that program, when we went to Agile, when we went to the dev ops, you need to change that. But along the way, the need for security being embedded more with product engineering, with the application development, I think that shows more and more. Even from security management perspective, I think learning from those programs, we know, right? If we don't get not only their leadership buying, but also their developers buying, it is too hard. It's too hard to get this program, not only the program successful, but it's too hard to really change the culture, change the security in the application development. So that's where I think people start to talk about security champions, right? Not security champions to say, oh, you need to remediate 5 things, 50 things, but security champions where, together with them on the design, right? On the development. And coming to JustWorks 3 years ago, where um, JustWorks is more tech company than other companies that I've been to, where a lot of the developers just trying to do many many things, and that's where I say that as well. The more my team can be closer to them, the more you see how the progress can be made. And then the less things we have to chase in the tail later on to fix things A, B, C, D. So yeah, I definitely see that. You probably have seen that as well, right?
I have definitely seen huge improvements. Um, my experience as a software developer, I found the security team, they blocked me. They said no a lot. They never knew the answer. And so I'd ask a lot of questions and they'd be like, well, you should know that. And I'm not telling you. And then eventually I figured out, oh, they just have no idea and they're feeling insecure that they don't know. And so then they're being jerk faces. And that's not helpful, as it turns out. And so, yeah, now that I've switched to security, I've seen a lot more positive interactions, a lot more, maybe the word is humble interactions. It's like, okay, so the way you want to do that, I see presents a very big risk to our organization. Could
Yeah,
we work together to try to find a way for you to still get done what you need to do, but with less risk? And when you word it like that, they're like, well, yeah, let's look, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Versus, no, you can't do that. Well, what can I do? Well, you should know. Well, that's
Absolutely.
not a helpful conversation.
Absolutely. And then you touch on one thing, actually remind me. You said that you ask them questions, the answer is you should know, at the end because they don't know. So that remind me one thing that, you know, JustWorks is my first time. I have a team called SAE, I mean Security Architecture Engineering, and this team exists almost everywhere, right? In any organizations. Um, this is my first time. We require any member on that team, don't care whether it's cloud security person or you are enterprise security person or IAM, everyone has to have the coding experience. I think that make big difference. Like I used to have others, secure people understanding risk, technical, but they don't know how to code. So
Mhm.
now we're saying only when you have the experience, only when you do that, you understand why engineers having the same concern. You know how to help them. So I think that is, a lesson learned from my end, and we're heading that route. So it's like, sorry, everyone, you got to do the coding test. But just don't ask me. I cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, they made me do a coding test to work at Semgrep, and I was really surprised. And
Ah.
also I didn't know a coding test was coming, so I thought I was just having a chat about the secret sauce of how our product works. And then the lady's like, "Oh, you just have to do this like small coding test." And I was like, "What?" Um, and it was in Python, and I had never coded in Python at that point, but I managed to get the answer um, in the
Well, that's the
end.
point. That is the point because we don't really look for you need to know this language, you know how to code. We look for how you think,
Yeah.
right?
Do you understand the logic? Can you walk through and figure it out? There's also matrices math, which I felt like, and recursion. So I had to do recursive matrices math. And I was like, come on. But I still managed to get the answer eventually.
Yeah.
So, well, in 7 minutes. But yeah, but I was just like, oh man, this takes me way back to college. But do you, so like, so things are changing for the better. We are
Yep.
both agreeing. This is awesome. Do you have any examples that you would want to share about how collaboration between the developers and the security team went really well, or a collaboration that went really badly? Like, do you have any examples off the top of your head?
Um, maybe it's like kind of like a summary thing, not exact example thing. Is like, how do I how do I know if the team, um, if the approach we have works well? Is most of the times when you hear product engineers, announce the product um, launch or announce the features or announce going out, they will think, they're developers like that. When I start to see those, acknowledgement goes to security team, that's where I say, great. That's what I want to hear because the team has been there from design, right, to engineer and to the launch. That's where I see the, if I call that, one way to measure the success.
Cool. Um, if we're thinking about application security, is there an area or something, an aspect that you feel tends to be overlooked? Like maybe people simplify it or they don't really think about it.
Um, Industry-wise, probably not. I think there are always smart people trying to say, "Oh, this is like we don't have enough. Let's create another, tool or new things to address that." I think it will. It depends on the company. I think is the way when they execute this program. I think that
Mm,
there could be things get overlooked. Um, they if you look at the secure SDOC, there's just so many things you can do, right? From the threat modeling to static dynamic analysis, the integrated analysis, runtime, you can do the penetration test. There's just a whole 9 yards of this,
mhm.
where that on one side, you most of the time you should not implement everything unless you have tons of money to spend on AppSec. But it's like, where is the best um, the best part, when I say best part, I meant that the investment for this particular capability really will address your AppSec issues, and
Mm.
that's where people should focus. Where at the same time that may let people just like, oh, by the way, they forget everything else. They think that they've done one thing, they're done. Um, that's one piece. The second piece, what I notice is like, um, we as AppSec people, we focus on so much on code scanning. And if you look at how the DevOps comes this way, there's so many things automated. The secrets, right? Those keys of secrets that becomes part of AppSec to me. Originally, years ago, you look at traditional, that is, privileged account management. It's part of IAM world. But I think that from AppSec perspective, that if leaders don't view the secret management, that part of non-human identity management is the umbrella of AppSec, I think that will be a miss.
Yeah. I I Yes. I'm just gonna say yes. I was like, can I say that? Can I say that? Probably shouldn't say that. But
Why?
I agree with you, and I want more people to agree with you. How about that?
Mm,
I feel like there's a lot of, we still need to get some people on board that train.
yeah.
Um, but we're working on it. Like you no, but your book is helping with that, right? Like I'm sure you cover secret management and how you should not be putting all the secrets in plain text in your code. And so, but like that's what I was taught in school when I went to college in the 90s. It was that you put your secrets in your code. So eventually those people will graduate into retirement or ideally read your book and learn, or read something or watch this and learn. But
Yeah.
um oh, I have so many thoughts. But are there tools or specific AppSec activities or techniques or anything that you find that you recommend the most often in AppSec? Like, is they're like, this is the tool, or like, this is the activity. Like, I have friends where they're like, threat modeling, you always start there. And I'm like, okay, I don't always start there. But do you have a thing that's like, this is the thing?
Um, Maybe I say this with some uh perception on my end. Um, I did not implement bug bounty program in every company, but I do feel now have some bug bounty program is really, really helpful because, like I said, you have all kinds of tools you can apply, right, in your secure SDLC, and you most likely won't catch everything. And by the way, there are certain things you just cannot catch, through the tool, the scanning. I think bug bounty helps because they look at things, particularly exposed to internet. They will help to number one catch things that their scanning tool cannot do. But the most importantly, if they catch anything, for example, that has not been remediated, that to me is a big validation of, what, actually this is more critical than others. That's the one I would recommend if possible. Didn't matter how mature your AppSec program is, whether in the initial or later stage, maybe introduce some, bug bounty program, it will be great. The reason I highlighting the priority part is why purely again, 10, 15 years ago, running application security, you only look at like that view, you want all the critical, remediated, high remediated, and then you want to everything remediated. But later on, I became CISO. You look at it overall, no way, right? You don't have enough people. You don't have enough budget to do everything like that. You have to really focus on what is critical, what is high in your specific situation. Don't purely rely on CV itself. Find some kind of like way to add factors to say, is this exposed to the internet? Is this exploitable, right? Is this, you know, uh, um, interacting with other systems? The more criteria you have, the more you can focus on the critical and real critical and high. First one, it will help development. You will
Mhm.
get more credibility, right? People say, "Oh, don't throw me 20." At the end, only really two matters, right? And then when you explain those things, people know you are becoming a partner. You are supporting them as well. Two, that really will focus on even like overall budget, right? Not AppSec is one big piece. The rest of others we want to invest as well. So that's why priority matters, where bug bounty program, kind of like help from that end.
Yeah. Yeah, because a real live person found this and exploited it, and
And
you
they are
need
the
to get
experts,
to. Mhm.
right? So,
So what if there's an AppSec team and they're having some friction? So like they're being told, well, you're a blocker, you're not letting us get stuff done. Is there, so like imagine you're joining this AppSec team or you're on this AppSec team. So they want to support the business goals. They want to, they want to get along, but they also can't just say, yes to everything. Are there ways that the AppSec team could be like try to not be seen as a blocker and like try to maybe get along better with others? Are there any suggestions?
Um, I don't think there's a silver bullet. There are probably many things that I've been trying. The first one is that again, this is a beyond AppSec. Just look at in general.
Yeah.
I told my team, I said, you know, be out there,
Mhm.
know people.
Mhm.
Let people see you because a lot of technical people just focus on the code, focus on that behind the scene, enjoy that piece. That's wonderful. But the reason I'm pushing them out, not only for their personal exposure, right, about the career path of it, but I do believe one thing is like, there are two people says, Tanya, do this for me. You know me, you don't know him. A lot
Yeah.
of times you will do this for me because you know me, right? Because we have a relationship. So that's why I was asking everyone, try to find a way to build their relationship. So that's kind of like a one thing, knowing more people. Second thing is, you know, again, not the one point, but if you look at overall, is build the credibility, right? There's not one day you just have a good relationship and then they will just listen. It's like you build your credibility by doing things benefit them, by doing things that they can resonate. Like I just talk about how you want to say, hey, even though the system tell you there's a 50 critical, but here's how we thinking that five of them are critical and why and what's the risk, right? So when you do those kind of things, the more you do those, the more credibility you have, the easier you will get there in the future. Um, and then another thing is, I would say is not only AppSec people, we're technical, but we should learn how to articulate the risk um, in a way people understand. So the more you are able to, first one, you have credibility. I know you're technical. I know you can code, right? That's great. And then you are helping me as a developer to understand the risk. And that is a big win as well, because at the end, doesn't matter how good we are as an AppSec or security professional, you really
Yeah.
rely on everybody else to do the job. You're really relying on the developer, have the security, mind. So next time when you are not there, when you didn't call out, they will do the right thing, right? So the more you are able to articulate the risk, the more you help them understand security. I mean, longer run, the better. So it will take a while, but as long as we AppSec people have that kind of like a mindset to take a step further together,
Yeah.
it will build up, I
I
think.
feel that's brilliant. When if I remember when I first started in security, like I had this meeting with my boss and his boss and his boss, and I was trying to explain, like, I'm like, the sky is falling, like this thing's really important. And they're like, nah, we're gonna do nothing. And after my boss was like, if it's truly important, you need to communicate. You can't just say the sky's falling. You have to say specifically how this will affect Canadian citizens, how this will affect our organization, how this will affect our reputation in the future, what financial damage could happen. He's like, Tanya, you didn't communicate clearly. We're going to meet again in a week, and I want you to be able to use your words, not volume or like emotions and stuff. He's like, I need you to explain clearly in language we understand. So you can't say, this is ephemeral. You have to say this is short-lived. And by short-lived, I mean 15 minutes, right? He's like, you need to speak our language, executive language. He's like, we are still just as smart as you, but we're smart in different ways. Speak to us just the same as if you're speaking to a dev. Would you say the same things when you talk to your mom? No, you wouldn't. You would use different language to communicate. So you're not communicating
Yeah.
clearly. So come back next week. And so I came back the following week and I had practiced on other smart people that weren't security people.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, oh my gosh, this is an emergency. We'd better act immediately. And my thing was approved just like that. And so that's brilliant, Yebing. I agree. If we can't explain to them why I I had a call like a few months ago with this team and they sell something equivalent to a t-shirt online. That's what their company does. They just sell t-shirts. And so it's not a super complex thing. And they actually do they risk
Mhm.
transfer all of the selling to another company. So literally their site is just gorgeous pictures of shirts, right? And that's it. It's just like a plain static website essentially. And they're battling with the devs over the results of their scanners because no one knew what any of it meant. And they're like, well, the scanner says critical. And the devs are like, I don't actually think any of those are important. And so we went through them one at a time. And I was just like, so your shirt doesn't sell anything. It doesn't handle money. There's no login. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, so why are we concerned that your version of TLS is version 1.1 instead of 1.3? Do you think a nation state's going to spend time to break your encryption so that they can what? Look at your t-shirts and like all your stuff is public facing and like totally not confidential. So why are we concerned? Like, do we think that this would happen? I don't think that. And so we went through, and then there was a few where I was like, this really is important, and here's why. And so we went through, and then all of a sudden, everyone got along. And now
Yeah.
the team are talking all the time. They don't need me anymore. And like they just needed that person to like translate a little bit, and now they all just seem to know how to talk. And like, yeah, being it's a magical gift to be able to communicate clearly.
It is, and like we just said, that when we are coming from technical background and we believe technology can solve everything, we may miss the big opportunity of at the end, it is them doing the work.
Yeah.
And you want them all just step up a little bit more, right? Have the security in the mind. So having that I don't want to call that sales kind of mindset, but in a way, you're selling the how security is important, right? They need to include the security in their quality of
Mhm.
their work every day. So that part of like, hey, communication, the selling, the understanding why, articulate the why, and articulate that it is important thing. And also touching on that is taking every opportunity, right, to educate them. I mean, not in a way, hey, I'm a teacher, you're, but it's like the more I learn coding from you, the more you learn security from me, and then we actually can do that together much better, right? It's not one plus one is two,
Mhm.
is exponential. So,
I love that. I love that. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of our time, so I want to ask the questions that set people into action. And so, how do we go from reading a book with 97 smart things
mhm,
to actually doing some of them? So, like, how could we convince? So, like, let's say, I have a dev team and I bought a copy of this and I'm getting them all to read it slowly but surely. And so I'm like, how do we turn it into action? Like, is there any ideas that you have of how we could try to apply some of these lessons? I feel like you already touched upon this throughout the webinar, but do you have any thoughts?
um, at the end, I would say the most important thing is do it, right? You just need to start doing it. And you don't need to do everything in the beginning. What's important is to first want to understand what should be in the AppSec world. And so you have a kind of a holistic view. And then based on your company's like a business situation, your maturity of the AppSec program and looking at the gaps, start with something. So I think start with something is better than nothing. That's for sure. But you just cannot just do, oh, I know this, so I do it. No, you need to know how this fits into overall big picture you want to execute. Because at the end, AppSec is ongoing. So you may have really multi-year program, probably forever program. But where you want to start, it really depends on your own situation. I would just encourage just start somewhere. And secondly is that because this book has so many different um, people writing based on their different experience with their different perspectives, I don't think it's easy to remember them all. So what I would suggest is along the way, come back, flip through, look for something that may resonate with you maybe a year later, right? And then, improve your program from that perspective.
I like this idea. I also, a thing that I've seen a lot of people do with my books, and now I do with other people's books, is I get post-it notes and I put it in anything that I think is cool that I want to review later. I do that with recipe books too. I'll buy a recipe book and I'll look through, and each one that looks yummy gets a post-it note. Sometimes there's a lot of post-it notes yumming. And then I go through and I look at those ones and I'm like, okay, so which one do I think would make sense for the situation I'm doing now at work, right? Like, so you said there's a section on like how to start a program, and
Yep.
there's like as probably a section on tools and what they do and why you might want to use them. And so if you're like, oh, I'm looking at tools, go to the tool section.
Yes, yes, yes. You're right. And another thing I learned from my journey, I mean, again, beyond AppSec, is that sometimes we go to training for whatever reason. We go to training. Not everything they said will resonate with me at that moment. And then 5 years later, 10 years later, it just like, oh my, I learned that day. I just never feel it, never, being able to apply. I think that's a general learning thing. It's like when you flip back at this, years later, you know what? I didn't think that was important at that time. Now, maybe in my situation, I like this one. Maybe I should, execute something different or more.
Yes, yes, exactly. When I used to have We Hack Purple, I would do live training at companies, but then I could give them all a seat at We Hack Purple Academy so they could review the course a year later if they wanted to. And it's recordings, it's not the same as having me there live, but it's like you
Yep.
can just go through these lessons anytime you want. You have a
Yep.
free ticket. And
Yeah.
not a lot of them wouldn't use it that often, but when they did, they're like, that was really helpful. Yeah. Having being able to go back on your training, or like if it comes with a book or going through your notes, this is really smart, which is why this is so helpful, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one last question and then I swear I'm going to try to wrap up. So imagine someone's building out their first AppSec program. So when I built out my first AppSec program, I had no mentor, I'd had no training. I was literally like just winging it, flying by the seat of my pants, really hoping I was helping. We can do so much better now. You have a zillion years of experience. So if someone, but it's amazing because you're only 25. But if she just like she does many years at the same time. But like if you were going to help someone build their first AppSec program, like do you have any advice that you'd want to give them about how to start?
Yeah, I actually my chapter is about, a successful AppSec program. And there were a few lessons learned I put out there. Um, One of them is about you really need to get the buy-in from the business or engineering group first. Don't feel like this is your program. If you do that, either you will fail or it will take us so long together.
Yeah.
So don't start with that, making sure you do enough communication buying first from the leadership. And then the second one I mentioned just now is like, start with the simple. Yes, we have a comprehensive view of everything. You cannot do everything. So start with something that's simple, but you can see the value right away. So when again, people will start saying the credibility you build, right? And then you can build upon that piece. So pick something small to start with. And another thing I think I learned is I remember in 2010-ish when we started the program, there's a gate, right? You have to come to security for signing up of architecture. You have to go to security for signing up before the deployment. You know, all of those manual steps let people hate you more. So the more automation we can apply in the AppSec world, the better, right? development becomes more and more, automated. If we can do that,
Mhm.
um, of of course, it's hard to do automation from a remediation perspective, but everything else, if we can apply automation, that will be, another lesson learned. And then the one more is really about um, getting you as a security team, you may not be in all of the development teams, developing the
Mhm.
products, development. So, you know, try to figure out if someone over there has more security mindset, develop them into your like your security champions. Find friends over there more. So this kind of like program, execution will be much easier with the support directly from their world if you cannot embed in their world directly.
That's such good advice. It's really, really, really good advice. I I do see a lot of companies where they're like, oh, but everything's going wrong, so we should launch these 27 initiatives right now. And it's like, that's not going to go well. Oh, all of the advice is good, like communicating clearly, making sure it's our program, not my program. Like all of that is so good, Yabing. Oh my gosh.
It takes
Okay.
time. I mean, again, like you said, your first time you did not know. My first time I did not know either. We did, we have prepared the analysis of how many hours we save, how much money we save. You know what? They don't care. So it's like you really need to get that buying. It's not about you. It's not about they approve a security initiative. It's about everyone that feel this their stuff together. Even
Mhm.
we did. I remember we did a lot of reporting, right? We reporting goes to our CIO at that time. It's like, we try to let the holding people accountable, right? Like how many vulnerabilities you have over there. But again, if you don't get their buying, they still treat you as something else that they can always lower the priority. So
Yeah. Yeah. That so I also see a lot of programs that have no metrics other than what their scanner says.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think it's really good that you talk about more than just that because the metric can't just be, oh, we ran the scanner X number of times. It found this many things. We fixed those things. Boom, we're good. It's
Yeah.
like that is not a holistic picture of our systems.
And all of those things, it's not easy. Like you said, it's like the writing a book is not easy. Running those programs is not easy. It takes time. It takes time. And then, you may not have a great or perfect metrics in the beginning, but along the way, you will know, you will develop those ones.
Yeah.
Something like that. It will be a collective effort for sure between security and development.
Mhm. So at this point, I suspect people are like, where can I get more yabbing? And so the first thing they can do is buy a copy of this book, and it's in the chat, many places for them to buy the book. And so if you are watching this later, we will put the links below in the YouTube description so you can get it. But what about LinkedIn or are there other ways to reach you?
Yes, LinkedIn is definitely a right way. I don't do Twitter, so or nor Facebook. So, and LinkedIn will be a best way to contact me.
Awesome. Well,
Great.
Yibing, thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate all the advice that you gave because that is the stuff people can turn into action and then therefore protect their org, do better at their job, their career, and also a lot of the advice you gave help them like it really focused on how you could communicate better or how you could kind of get along better, which is a thing that I feel is something we all could work on in AppSec. So I really, really appreciate all the advice you gave.
Oh, thank you. And I enjoyed our the third time we work together, right? The book, and then you come to JustWorks to, train our developers on threat modeling. So, like I appreciate everything to you. Like I said, that you being AppSec, so deep, like true expert, I look up to you as well. I learned so much from you too. We'll continue the collaboration work in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yabing. Thank you, Roxana, and every other person that joined us today. And if you're watching later, thank you for watching later. And with that, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Bye.